The Coffin of Andy and Leyley is a horror visual novel game that was released in March 2023. The indie horror game wouldn't go unnoticed, as YouTubers like mainly Badass Hero would make videos playing the game and exploring its dark story, making the game's popularity quickly rise as other YouTubers would have their take on the game as well. The story consists initially on two siblings, Ashley and Andrew, trying to not starve to death as they are locked up in their apartment because they contracted a deadly parasite. Although the story plot seems simple enough, The Coffin of Andy and Leyley goes way far beyond just another visual novel game. It hides secrets for the player to find and connect the puzzle pieces to discover more about the two siblings' horrible past. And take my word, this game has some of the best dialogues and one of the richest storytelling I have ever seen in indie games, being in my opinion all the way up there with FNAF and Undertale. Today I brought you here to explore together the iceberg of this wonderful game that is full of disturbing secrets, so obviously this video will contain spoilers of the game. And before we start, I would like to thank the users of the subreddit of the game who submitted some of the entries on this iceberg. Thanks to them, this video was made possible. So without any further ado, let's dive in and see what awaits us in this iceberg. The first part of this iceberg, also known as the sky, is where you find the stuff that pretty much everyone knows if they've played the game or watched a bit of gameplay. This tier of the iceberg is like a warm-up, giving you a taste of what the game is all about, because it's all the basic stuff. In the game, Andy and Leyley is what Ashley calls the adventures she and her brother Andrew would have when they played together, being the names Andy and Leyley nicknames for Andrew and Ashley. Some flashbacks show that Ashley started using these names when she was just 5 years old, and even now that she is older, she still talks about them quite often. Every time she mentions these names, her brother gets annoyed since he doesn't like to be named Andy, and that name brings back terrifying memories. Namely is the developer of many games: Better Half, Jack in a Castle, No Good Noel, and more importantly, The Coffin of Andy and Leyley. Although this developer created many games, we have little to no information about her. Most of the people didn't even know about the creator before the release of this game, just like me. So, like the good researcher I am, I went on to ask people on the Discord server dedicated to the game if they knew anything about Namely. As expected, the people there knew as little as me. The only things we know is that she is a woman, has other games with similar art styles and stories, has no socials, and has very questionable interests. In ninth grade or so, you likely learned about symbiotic relationships in science class, including codependent relationships, which apply only to humans. In this type of relationship, one person relies on the other, and the other person depends on being needed. The codependent person, known as the giver, feels worthless unless they are needed by the enabler, otherwise known as the taker. And no, I'm not here to teach you some science. I gave you this context so you could understand how the relationship between Ashley and Andrew is exactly a codependent one. Andrew takes on the responsibility of caring and protecting his sister Ashley by making responsible decisions and even going as far as arming others to accomplish that. Like when he kills one of the wardens that found Ashley hiding, feeling useless when he isn't able to protect her. Ashley, however, pretty much just takes advantage of this and enables his unhealthy behavior. In this codependent relationship, they support each other in their criminal behaviors, often leading to serious actions like committing murder, theft, and a lot of violence. A bleak world is an environment that gives the sense of gloominess and hopelessness. In a bleak world, there is a lack of positivity and optimism. It always gives out the vibe of despair, sadness, and the overall absence of joy. This is exactly the type of world Andrew and Ashley live in. A world that lacks colors, where people are mean for no reason, and lack a lot of empathy. Even the siblings' parents seem to have no sympathy or care for their own children. This one is pretty self explanatory. In RPG/visual novel games, it's common to have a narrator to describe what's happening in the game, like when you interact with an object or when a character does an action. In this game, it's no different. However, this game's narrator goes way beyond the normal ones you're used to in other games. This one breaks the fourth wall several times by either talking directly to the player or even the characters themselves. In some situations, he will get mad at the player, either because we are making an obvious dumb decision or because we insist in interacting with something we can't. It is shown to exist demons in the game's fictional world. The first contact we have with one of them is when Ashley and Andrew invade their neighbor's apartment and see their neighbor getting his soul stealed by a demon. In episode 2, Andrew follows one cult member just to find himself in a reunion of a satanic cult. These cult members are shown to praise and try to summon these demons with rituals, but they always fail miserably when trying to summon one. However, the siblings Ashley and Andrew always seem to be successful in summoning them. By using music, runes, blood, and candles, they summon a total of 3 demons throughout the gameplay. Ashley is by far the character with most contact with these creatures, being even summoned by one of these demons in her dreams. Julia is Andrew's ex-girlfriend in the plot. We don't know when they started dating, but the breakup is present in the game. In the first episode, Julia breaks up with Andrew because of some problems she had with his sister. In episode 2, she appears in Andrew's dream, and a flashback of a dialogue between the two is shown. Other than that, Julia isn't really explored as a character. She remains as a simple minor character in the game's story. And just like that, we finished the first tier of the iceberg. I hope these first minutes of the video really gave you a general idea of what the game is about. Let's now move on to the tier 2, the tip of the iceberg. Another pretty self-explanatory entry. I don't think that in game the ages of Andrew and Ashley are mentioned other than their mom saying that they are both in their 20s. But in a concept art from the game's page, it showcased that Andrew is 22 years old and Ashley is 20. The game doesn't really try to hide the fact that Julia, the ex-girlfriend of Andrew, was harassed quite often by his sister Ashley. In the conversation between Julia and Andrew, she complains to him about the threatening nature of Ashley and that he should do something about it before it's too late. And if that wasn't proof enough, in Andrew's dream, if we interact with the phone of Julia's dormitory room, we find out that Ashley left 127 messages all threatening Julia. The reason? Ashley doesn't like to share Andrew, not even with his girlfriend. In the second episode of the game, Ashley starts having some visions through her dreams. These visions are quite helpful to her and Andrew, since they avoid getting killed by a hitman because of them. The reason of these visions is due to the contract she made with a demon back in episode 1. After Ashley offered the soul of the warden to the demon, he offers her a trinket that at first seemed to be useless but later on showed to be the reason of Ashley's visions. However, the trinket only provides one vision per soul offered to the demon. Therefore, if she wants to keep having them, she needs to keep feeding the demon human souls. Still, we see that these visions aren't always helpful and sometimes really weird, like we will see deeper on the iceberg. Back to that concept art I just showed you moments ago, we can also spot an arrow pointing to Andrew, saying Dormet Extraordinaire. These references to the fact that he lets people, namely Ashley, walk all over him and use him. Yeah, in the playthrough of the game, you will find some quotes in the dialogues between Andrew and Ashley that suggest that their codependent relationship is going more towards an intimate one. Their mom also shares this opinion and really thinks that their relationship is intimate, confirmed by some of her dialogues in the game, which are also some of the funniest. The siblings' parents, Mr. and Mrs. Graves, were quite a mystery in episode 1, since we only had a few instances where we get some information about them. But in these few times they are mentioned, it's always to show the lack of care they have for their own children, Ashley and Andrew. One of these occasions that this is clearly shown is when Ashley calls her mom to complain about being starving in the locked apartment, where her mom couldn't care less and tells her that she won't answer any more calls from her own daughter. The father isn't much better, being described as a weak man who simply goes along with his wife under questionable decisions. Although it's never shown if the parents were always like this towards the siblings, they are probably the reason Ashley's mental state deteriorated so much to the point of not carrying on killing them and other people. Therefore, they are considered the main antagonists of the storyline until now. In episode 2, they end up being killed by Ashley and Andrew, and their souls are offered to one of the demons that Ashley summons. Andrew and Ashley are told to be quarantined because they got parasites from a water contamination, and that's why we find them locked in the apartment at the start of the game. But later on, they find out through their parents that this was a life insurance scam, and there were never any parasites. This quarantine was shady from the beginning, since as we know, people who contract parasites aren't normally quarantined, since parasites are not contagious like a virus or normal diseases. In this game there are two different routes, decay and burial. Decay will lead to one ending, while burial can lead to two different endings. We can access the decay route either by not trusting Andrew in guarding the parents, or when we trust in him but he accepts the mom's offer. If we follow this path, the siblings' relationship will highly deteriorate, and Andrew and Ashley will act more hostile towards each other. Andrew will act more dominant towards Ashley, and Ashley will lose trust in Andrew. This route will always end with Ashley getting a vision of either her killing him or him killing her, depending on whether her gun has bullets or not. We get into the burial route by trusting in Andrew to guard the parents and him declining the offer that his mom gives him. By following this route, we will now have two doors on Ashley's dream. One that leads to the same ending, in which Andrew and Ashley get well along with each other and goof around while disposing their parents' corpses. and the other leads to an ending that the fans called true ending or incest ending, which I will explain it later on this iceberg since it's an entry in a deeper tier. But yeah, you most likely have an idea on how this ending will play out. This concludes Tier 2. Now we'll be moving on to some topics that aren't so well known like the ones in the first two tiers, being more secret and obscure. Since things are about to get dark, I will go to a more appropriate place. My basement. ASPD stands for Antisocial Personality Disorder, and it is a mental health condition. Individuals with this mental disorder often show no care for the rights of others, violating any types of social rights and show a lack of empathy and no remorse for their actions. Just from this description, you could have guessed which character I am talking about. Ashley shows pretty much every characteristic a person with ASPD would show, like not respecting someone's boundaries, showing no remorse in crimes such as cannibalism, murder, and parricide, and not thinking about the consequences her actions will have on others. Nina is a minor character in the storyline and the siblings' accidental first victim. She was an Ashley's friend that had a crush on her brother. This particular crush made Ashley pretty angry, so much so that she convinced her brother into tricking Nina into getting closed on a wooden box. They leave her there until the next day because Ashley thought this was a great way to teach her a lesson. However, the next day arrives and when they go check on her, she's dead. Which is a pretty weird thing to understand, because no one dies of hunger in just one day, and asphyxiation isn't possible either, since the box is made out of wood and had holes for air to get in. Through the dialogues between Andrew and Ashley, we get the information that she clawed the crate until her fingernails split. Nasty. But according to the wiki, Nina died from an asthma attack after she got locked in the crate full of dust. I don't remember the game ever mentioning this, so if you have any idea on where they got this information, leave it in the comments. If you go to the siblings' bedroom at the apartment and interact with the desk table, you will find an old drawing made by Ashley in a drawer. It is poorly written in the paper, Andy and Leyley and are very quiet, which is a funny reference to Nina's death since we can see the poorly drawn wooden box next to them. French Ashley, also called Leyley, is a recurring meme in the community of the game for some reason, normally showing Ashley performing an action associated to French people, while dressed as this. I don't know how all of this started, but most likely it was this YouTuber named the Doom Prophet, who made an edit of 10 minutes of French Ashley. I will leave a link down below to the dude's video. Now let's skip to the next entry because I can't stand this music anymore. Remember a few entries ago when I mentioned the fake parasites? Well, this fake parasite scam actually goes way deeper than just a scam. Okay, recapping, the parasites were fake, since after 3 months of quarantine, Andrew and Ashley are still healthy and didn't show any signs of being sick. The company of Toxic Cola made this story up. But why, you ask? Simple. To harvest on the organs of the residents of the building, comproved by so much factors in the game. The nurse taking blood samples of the residents, including Andrew and Ashley, the blood type signs marked on the apartment's doors, and a book about organ harvesting in the warden's security room. Basically, the wardens were given orders to not feed people with certain blood types, so they could die of hunger and then harvest on their organs. The cult leader, called Six Eyes by his pupils, is the one who organized the cult meeting at the beginning of episode 2. He doesn't have much screen time though. He tries to summon a demon, fails miserably, and has a really small conversation with Andrew. Although he has small screen time, he is one of the few characters that actually has a portrait when talking in dialogues. In episode 2, he doesn't appear more after the cult reunion, so we can only hope to see him again in the future of the game. Better Half is one of the other many games that Namely made before the Coffin of Andy and Leyley. The games share similar gameplay, being Better Half also a visual novel, and both have similar art styles and sprite styles. Yet, Better Half and all the other games of the creator aren't as nearly as popular as the Coffin of Andy and Leyley. I haven't played Better Half, neither have I watched gameplay of it, but people that played both games have really positive feedback about the game, so I recommend you to go play it, since it's free. The brand Toxi Soda seems to be in some type of war with other soda companies. One of their main rivals is the brand Bubbly Popply, who mocks them in live television. All these soda brands try to advertise their products pretty much everywhere they can, mainly in billboards and television ads. Now that we finished this third tier of the iceberg, we will be moving on to the tier 4. It's in here that the topics really get more disturbing, so buckle up your seatbelts, because we are about to enter the deep waters. Cannibalism was one of the most marking features in episode 1, and many of us players weren't expecting for it to come back in episode 2. And as if seeing the main characters cooking and eating the corpse of their neighbor wasn't disturbing enough, the siblings would go on to kill their own parents and cook some of the parts, making a human soup. At the table, as Andrew watches his sister consume the soup, he questions her about this bizarre cannibalistic desire. According to her, eating people is like eating their entire life, and the energy that she gets from this turns her more powerful. Therefore, we can conclude that Ashley might actually be into being cannibal. It's worth noting that we can make Andrew also eat the soup if we are following the burial route. At the end of episode 2, there are 4 possible outcomes, and one of these outcomes is weird to say the very least. For this ending to occur, you need to choose the far left door in Ashley's dream, and the game will provide a small warning that what might be behind this door won't be pleasant. After ignoring the warning and completing a small minigame, the following cutscene will play. But before you come to your own conclusions, this is just a vision, so it doesn't mean that it will necessarily happen in the future of the story. So for now, this relationship between the two is only a possibility. In the decay route, while Ashley is dreaming, we have access to a small room where we find the demon and four souls lying around, each representing someone the siblings offered to the demon. Up the stairs, there are two souls that seem to be close to each other, but as you can see, one of these two is dark and has red eyes, unlike the others. When interacting with them, we get the message these two seem to fancy one another, so we can only assume that these two souls represent Ashley and Andrew's parents, and it is believed that the darker soul belongs to the mom, to represent how evil she was towards her own children. Nothing new under the sun is a phrase that Andrew says to Ashley at the end of episode 1. For those Christian enthusiasts watching the video, you might recognize this phrase from the Bible, in Ecclesiastes 1:9. This phrase is generally used to say that something will always turn out the same way, which is exactly the reason why Andrew used it to respond to Ashley's comment. When I was browsing through the subreddit, I got the information that this phrase was also mentioned by one of the characters in Better Half. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to confirm this, so if any of you watching have any information about whether this is true or not, leave it in the comments and I will pin it. Unlike his wife, Mr. Graves, the father of Andrew and Ashley, has no avatar portraying the dialogues. He also only has like 10 lines in the whole game, and he won't be having any character development because, well, he gets killed in the end of episode 2. But his design is still visible in one of the cutscenes of the game, and ironically, he was saying this in that scene. Although they are siblings, Andrew and Ashley seem to share romantic feelings towards each other, and there are many occasions in the game that show this. It's pretty easy to notice it on Ashley, since she is pretty forward when it comes to showing her feelings. She teases Andrew quite often and doesn't hide the fact that she only wants him for herself. But if you still don't believe me, in the burial route, after getting that weird dream, Andrew and Ashley will have a discussion on it. At some point, Ashley will say, I honestly figured it would happen eventually. And yes, she's referring to what happens in the dream/vision, aka sex. It's way harder to notice this on Andrew, since he tries to hide the feeling as much as he can, because deep down he knows it's wrong to be attracted to his own sister. He fakes nightmares so he can sleep in the same bed with Ashley, asks his own girlfriend to tie her hair up, just like Ashley has, and he is really afraid of losing her. Would you look at that? One more entry about incest. When Andrew and Ashley are in the kitchen deciding about whether or not to murder their parents, we are shown the following cutscene. If you pay close attention, we can see my man Andrew touching something, even having his fingers between her belt loop. He might not even notice what he was doing, but bro is definitely holding a cheek there. The funniest thing is that their mom was watching this the whole time. And finally, after 4 tiers, we have arrived to the final tier of the iceberg, Total Darkness. Here, we will be viewing the least discussed and most disturbing topics of the game. As I mentioned earlier, the DK route ends with one of the siblings killing the other in Ashley's vision. If Andrew only shooted once the hitman, Ashley will have the option to draw the gun and kill Andrew before he kills her. If we choose to not draw the gun, Ashley says goodbye to Andrew and he responds that he will see her soon, probably meaning that Andrew will take his own life after killing her. Cat Bridger is a highly active Reddit user in the game subreddit. He stood out among everyone there because he says the most out of pocket things imaginable on every post, followed by his famous Vegeta image. And it seems that everyone in the community appreciates his posts and him. He recently became a moderator of the subreddit, so congrats bro. And now I'll be showing a compilation of the best comments I've found about Cat Bridger as a tribute to him. Enjoy. The mom of Ashley and Andrew did in fact get pregnant at only 15 years old. This can be verified through a dialogue their mom has with Andrew, in which she states that at his age, she already had a 7-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. As I mentioned a few years ago, Andrew is 22 years old at the time of the story, so doing the math, we find out a disturbing truth. By following the burial route and selecting the same door path, we will enter a minigame in which Ashley has to collect souls with an empty bottle. After collecting all of them, a final soul appears, one that looks different from the others. When interacting with the soul, a green text will appear, just like when Andrew speaks, and Ashley seems to somehow know this specific soul by the way she talks to it. Therefore, we can assume that this particular soul belongs to Andrew. But why is Andrew's soul in Ashley's vision? And what does Ashley mean by let's get out of here before he finds us? Who is after them? This question is answered in the final cutscene of episode 2, where Andrew gains a mark on his hand, of which he is unaware. A mark that really resembles to the demon, so connecting all the dots, we can theorize that the demon will somehow get a hold of Andrew's soul in the future of episode 3. And Ashley will need to save him somehow, like we saw in her vision. Back when the game page had comments enabled, someone posted this art about a vision Ashley was having. That is kinda similar to what we see in the true ending of the real game. To make matters worse, namely, the creator would comment on this post, and since it was posted sometime before the release of episode 2, people started speculating that the incest ending was added because of this post. In my opinion, it's just a funny coincidence. In episode 2, there's a hitman who planned to attack Ashley and Andrew while they were asleep. However, things didn't go as he planned, because Ashley had a vision of him. This led Ashley and Andrew to ambush and kill the hitman in the park. Problem solved, but this raises the question, who the hell is even this guy? And my answer to that question is I have no idea. And neither does anyone in the subreddit, having little to no posts about him. But most likely he's just a random guy sent by the water company to kill Ashley and Andrew, since they are witnesses of the organ harvesting scam. There are also some papers in the Hitman's car that seem to confirm his connection with the water company. In the wiki there is a little more information about him, like his name is apparently Mr. Washing Machine, and he appears in a concept art on one of the devlogs stalking Andrew and Ashley. At last, we have reached the end of the iceberg. This is probably the most fun iceberg video I've ever made, and it's also the longest. I hope you enjoyed it, since it took me a whole month to make this video. And if you have any questions regarding the iceberg, make sure to leave it in the comments. I hope to see you soon.